Well, hello there, and welcome to the AFA Podcast, the official podcast of animationforadults.com. This is episode 16, and you can find all our previous episodes on iTunes, on Stitcher, and on podcast.com, and of course on animationforadults.com. I'm Chris, and I am joined by my podcast co-pilots, and here is Dan. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Chris.
How's it going?
I'm good, cheers. How are you?
I'm very well. And by Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Hey.
How's it going?
Everything's going good.
Awesome. And Yvonne's not with us this week, but Jill's here. Hey, Jill.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Long time no speak.
I know.
Haven't been able to join us since, was it How to Train Your Dragon episode?
Yes, that's correct.
Interesting fact that this is actually the first episode Jill and Rachel have been in together. So
Yes. At long last.
Yes, it has finally happened.
And we still haven't quite managed to get everyone in one episode at the same time. Because Yvonne's super busy today. But we do have a special guest today, and we are joined by Jason Lee Waite from Sam Sweetmilk, the animated series on YouTube. Hi, Jason.
Hello. How's it going?
Awesome. Thanks for joining us.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me.
I guess this would be the point where, for our current, our listeners who might not be familiar with you, you could give just a little introduction.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So we've been making this YouTube cartoon for the last maybe 2 years, 3 years. So it's a sci-fi comedy in the same vein as like Hitchhiker's Guide and Venture Brothers in terms of content. It's about a guy who deletes all of his own memories, and his first memory is of finding himself alone in deep space on a ship with no idea how he got there. And the series begins 1 year later, and it's about who he's become and what he's going through, and largely who he's become and what he's going through is him being a complete arsehole and the effect of that. And he gradually becomes less of an arsehole as the series goes on, and we've made 2 episodes so far that primarily deal with a story arc relating to his first mate, who's a robot called Ghostworth, who's played by Kevin R. McNally, who plays Mr. Gibbs in the Pirates of the Caribbean films.
Nice.
And the first episode's 25 minutes long, second one's 21, and we've had a few Kickstarter campaigns which failed, but we have some Indiegogo campaigns which have done all right. So that's what we're on at the moment.
Awesome. Yes, and you're currently running one for the 3rd episode. Yes.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So we released episode 2 in September, and we're raising money in Indiegogo right now for episode 3, which is technically more like episode 0 with a splash of 3. It kind of cuts back and forth temporally. But we've raised 21,470 last time I checked, I think, on Indiegogo for it so far.
Nice. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We will talk more about Sam Sweetmilk and your experiences and everything later for our main topic. But before that, we are going to have our usual discussion of a few news stories that have been happening in the world of animation, and we're going to talk about some animation that we've been watching. But before that, I just a little bit of admin. I've added a new section to the site. I've put together a page which shows you all the ways you can actually help out the site if you appreciate what we do and would like to help us to do more of it. And that includes a bunch of free trials that you can do, such as getting free audiobooks from Audible, or being able to access all regions of Netflix with Unblock Us, or you can just shop on Amazon as you normally do, but just go through our links. Or if you were feeling super generous, you could always give us a little donation, or even, if you're really, really super generous, a recurring subscription. But obviously, we know not everyone can do that, and we appreciate you all anyway. But you will find the links to that in the show notes. But now we are going to talk some news. There's actually a bit of news that has just broken just before we I could say came on air, but we're not on air. It's just old-fashioned, outdated jargon, but you know what we mean. Before we started recording, that'll do. And that is that some of the cast of Disney's upcoming Zootopia have been announced. We already knew that Jennifer Goodwin is playing Judy Hopps, and Jason Bateman is Nick Wilde the fox, and Shakira is a gazelle called Gazelle. But we've got some more people. Idris Elba is playing a character called Bogo. Octavia Spencer, Mrs. Otterson, who appears to be an otter.
Really?
Yeah.
That's why I'm looking for all the name puns, the animal name puns.
Bonnie Hunt is Bonnie Hopps. I don't know who Bonnie Hunt is. Sorry, if you're listening. You're probably not. But I don't know who she is. J.K. Simmons, yeah, I know him. He's the Mayor Lionheart, who is a lion, who is a mayor, I guess.
That makes sense.
Yes. Nate Torrance, again, not sure who that is, but he's playing Clawhauser, who looks like a fat-faced leopard, who is a cop by the looks of it. He's got a uniform on. Jenny Slate as Assistant Mayor Bellwether, who is a sheep. Alan Tudyk as Duke Weaselton, who I'm just going to put it out there, probably a weasel of some description.
It is a weasel. And I think the funny thing about this, too, is that the name almost seems like a Frozen reference, because if you remember, his character was the Duke of Weaselton, which they kept calling Weaseltown.
Aha!
In the movie, yeah.
Ah, yes.
So,
the name.
Yeah, so I almost wonder if they did that on purpose, or if that's just coincidence, but throwing that out there.
Wouldn't put it past him.
Mm-mm.
Tommy Chong as Yax, who is a yak. I'm just guessing here. And Don Lake as Stu Hopps. Again, don't know who that is, but he's a rabbit. So, anyone got any strong opinions on that interesting list there?
I hope that the official announcement was that clueless. Like, it was just a guy in the PR department just like... Yeah, so there's a character called Mr. Hopps. Guess he's a rabbit or something. I don't know. Or kangaroo, probably. Knowing these lot.
I've just got some images to go on. It's quite small.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know, like, it sounds like a busy old film.
Idris Elba, that's good.
I'm really excited for if Alan Tudyk's in it, because he's really good with
He's in every Disney movie now since Wreck-It Ralph.
Because he played King Candy, didn't he?
Yeah, he was, and it seems like since then
he's in Big Hero 6 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, he is, because he's
quite versatile. I had no idea that he had like that kind of range.
He's really making he's really making a name for himself in the voice acting industry.
Yeah, I had no idea the first time I watched Wreck-It Ralph that was
I know,
him.
right?
I know.
Oh man,
yeah,
so impressive. Completely blew my mind. I remember just kind of sitting there stunned when the credits rolled, and it was like, that was Alan Tudyk? That was Wash from Firefly? Are you kidding me? So good on him. I'm glad he's so versatile. It kind of reminds me of Mark Hamill and his transition into voice acting.
Disney's giving him consistent work.
Yeah, they are. So we get to continue to hear him and his talented voice.
Yes.
Yay.
And J.K. Simmons as well. He's good.
Yes. Yes, he's very versatile too. He's fantastic. Especially with Tenzin and Korra, and then those Stanford Pines right now in Gravity Falls. He's doing great with that.
Oh, is he in Gravity Falls?
He is.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes. He plays Stanford Pines. I won't say anything more in case viewers or listeners haven't fully caught up on the show, because that's actually
season 1.
All right, well then I'm not saying major spoilers, so not saying anything.
Yeah. Also, the BAFTA Children's Awards have been named. BAFTA is the British Film and TV Academy, like the equivalent of the Oscars, but in Britain, and they do all sorts of ceremonies. They do the main film and TV awards, and they also do video games now. And they also have a special ceremony just for children's entertainment, and animation is represented in there. And there's a few categories that will be of interest to our listeners, and there's children's animation, and the Amazing World of Gumball, Mr. Bean the animated series, Shaun the Sheep the TV series, which we're a fan of, and Strange Hill High, which I've seen like one episode of it. It is very much a kids show, so I didn't keep rewatching. But it had quite an interesting animation style because I believe it's CG, but they've done it in a style to make it look like it's puppets. Like,
is that the one where oh goodness, Richard Ayoade does?
Yes, he's the main character. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and they've got oh, speaking of which, Richard Ayoade was in Danger Mouse. That was great.
Brilliant.
I was so happy.
Brilliant. I might check that out.
He's got like one line. It's like he just pops up. He's like, "Oh, Richard Ayoade."
Oh, it's a shame because he's just one of these guys who loved Danger Mouse as a kid and then shows up like, I just want to have I just want to say that I've been in Danger Mouse. I don't want to actually do any work or anything.
Yeah, I reckon that's probably what happened. I
absolutely love Richard Ayoade. He's so funny.
Yeah, he's awesome. Also, other categories. There's one that kids can vote for, which is the film category, and they can choose between. These aren't all animated, but most of them are. Big Hero 6, The Box Trolls, Cinderella, Home, Inside Out, Minions, Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, Paddington, Shaun the Sheep the movie, and SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. So pretty much all the kids' films of the last year or so.
Oh God, Lego Movie's been snubbed again.
That would have been last year, surely.
Yeah, that was last year.
Oh, really? Because I thought that was rubbing shoulders with Box Trolls and etc.
No, because Lego Movie came out in the beginning of 2014.
Yeah.
Actually, why is Box Trolls on? Why is Box Trolls on this list?
I may have been thinking because I interned at Cartoon Saloon. I had an eye on Song of the Sea, and I think that rubbed shoulders with Box Trolls in the nomination. So that I may be getting my wires crossed.
Yeah, Box Trolls probably just made the cut to be considered in the 2015 year because it came out in October of last year, and that's kind of around the cutoff, I think, of what they consider for nominations for the year.
Because Big Hero 6 only came out in January. I know in the UK.
Oh, in January in the UK? Okay.
Yeah, so that's why.
Yeah, it was November here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we had to wait for that one. So that's why that's included. But yeah, I don't know what they're going to choose. Okay, and there are some other categories that are of interest. There's the Children's International. So that includes Adventure Time, Clarence, Gravity Falls, and the non-animated Nowhere Boys. So let's go for Gravity Falls and Adventure Time, and I haven't seen Clarence.
There's some shining moments in the series itself, but do yourself a favor and watch the pilot. It's so good.
The pilot's really good, yeah. I agree.
Yeah, very, very good. I mean, with all that, I think it may have been hamstrung in part by the whole Skylar Page fiasco, but I think that the pilot just really stands out as like a really great example of kids writing. Very, very good.
Very cool.
I've not seen the pilot, but I've seen some of the series, and I quite like the series.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, it's not like, I'm not turning things down to sit down and watch a series. I'm not like, putting off dinner or anything, but like I've got a lot of time for that pilot. I must have watched it 10 times or so by now. Actually, it's
wow.
Yeah, it's very, very. It's. I mean, like just because. I mean, all the good writing in cartoons is just a series of very short moments that just really stand out, and it's got some really great ones. So, yeah, it's very, very good.
Nice. I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah.
And there's also just the general feature film category, which isn't voted for by the actual kids watching, and in that case, it's just Big Hero 6, Inside Out, Paddington, and Shaun the Sheep the movie.
Don't make me can't choose between them. Especially not Inside Out and Big Hero 6, man. That's tough.
That's easy.
That is easy. It's Inside Out.
Sorry. Yeah.
My producer dragged me to go and see Shaun the Sheep, and I don't usually watch kids movies except for like the big ones, so I'm kind of the part of the problem. But she there's this one bit where he's paying off the duck.
Oh, that's my favourite joke.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So in case anybody who's listening hasn't seen that bit, there's a bit where Shaun is bribing this duck, and he meets him, and they're both looking shifty sort of between these two caravans, and he hands him some like 4 slices of bread behind his back, and the duck takes it without looking, and like flips through it like it's cash. It's just a really nice bit of like physical comedy. Very, really good.
That's my favourite joke in the whole movie, and it's always what I think of when I think about that movie. I love the fact that someone else brings that up.
Oh, it's very, very good. I mean, in terms of like, good moments for adults in kids' films, because I've always found that Aardman don't do that well, really, like, keeping it for adults at the same time, or as well as like Pixar and DreamWorks, but in that moment, definitely they really nailed it.
Yes, and also Paddington's not obviously completely animated, but the bear is, and that film is also charming as all hell, so I wouldn't even mind if that wins. And other than that, there is a short category and a film that was made last year for the 100th anniversary of the start of the First World War, called Poppies, has been nominated.
Brilliant! That was a great film.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was made to show on Children's BBC and CBeebies, which is the channel that's aimed at younger children, and it actually went out at the the armistice time, which is 11 o'clock on the 11th hour of the 11th of November every year, and it was it's the point where there's like the 2-minute silence, and so it runs for the length of the 2-minute silence, so that children have got something to watch, and it's sort of supposed to be evocative of the war, but it's obviously not really traumatic for children. It's got.
I'd be interested to see how they treated that.
Yeah, and Simon Partington and Jackie Edwards directed that. So if you get a chance to watch that, I'd recommend that. And yeah, BAFTAs wise, I think that about covers it. Okay. Another bit of news is that an interesting book is coming out from Stonebridge Press, who are sort of Japanese specialist publisher who done like the anime encyclopedia and everything. They are doing a translation of a Japanese biography of Osamu Tezuka, the creator of Astro Boy and about a million other anime and manga. The god of manga, the godfather of anime, whatever you want to call him, big deal, and it is a manga style biography of his life and work, which is quite interesting.
That's really fitting, I think. At least, in regards to the amount of work that he's done. He worked with manga and transitioning into animation. That's really, really fitting.
Yep, I think that's interesting, and everyone will like that, apart from Miyazaki, who says that that Tezuka was just a comic artist who shouldn't have been in animation. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah. Really hates how he made like animation that's really cheap, very popular. I mean, it's quite funny to hear about there being a book based on Tezuka's life, because the only thing I've seen like about his life is there's a documentary where it's meant to be like following him around, like a documentary, but he worked so hard. It's just him in his office, like watching telly and smoking and drawing, and he worked bloody hard.
It's funny to hear Miyazaki say that, because the Lupin the Third TV series was really, really cheap. On par.
Yeah, but then
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, I think that's what he tried to do with what's that? Cagliostro, Castle Cagliostro.
Oh, that's so good. You know, Spielberg lists Cagliostro as I think it's his favorite action film. I think that's how he ranks it.
I think it's got his favourite action sequence in it. Supposedly the car chase.
Which one? Because I've never seen that film. Which action sequence was it?
The car
There's
chase.
one about 2 minutes.
The car chase.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good that sometimes I honestly stop watching the film there. Because
I don't blame you.
It seriously is like, yeah, be imaginative and
well, just those cartoon physics, and it somehow manages to keep it all.
When it drives up the wall, yeah. It's really witty action.
And watched in the context, like if you see some of the Jeep chases in Indiana Jones, you can see how evocative it is.
Yeah.
You know, driving up over sort of what would you call it? Like, you know, ascending over a side road and then plunging back into the road ahead when you just think you've lost them or something. You know, really clever.
Yeah.
But, funnily enough, I rewatched Big Hero 6, and that's got like the only other animated car chase I can really think of in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, this is the best car chase since Castle of Cagliostro.
Probably the only one as well. Yeah.
And then I also thought, I can't think of any other animated car chases since Castle of Cagliostro.
Yeah. Yeah, the stuff from Big Hero 6 is great.
If you think about it, though, maybe potentially Tintin.
Yeah, Tintin was the only one that was coming to mind.
Oh,
yeah.
That is really a lot like the Cagliostro.
Oh, it all ties together. Steven Spielberg.
I see.
Where's Kevin Bacon's got to be in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Tying it all together.
I don't know how, but somehow.
Oh yeah, the bacon roll. Oh yeah, because you have a bacon number, right?
Yeah.
I was told I have a bacon number of 2 the other day. Apparently, somebody told me that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, because of you being with Kevin, whatever his name is.
Yeah, the guy from Pirates of the Caribbean who's in our cartoon.
And he's been in something with Kevin Bacon.
Apparently.
Well, most people have, I guess.
hence the number, yeah. Hence the number.
Yeah. Has Kevin Bacon ever done any animation? I don't know.
He was in. He played lead in Balto. I remember. I don't know if anyone ever saw that. It was like what studio made that?
That was Amblimation.
I think so.
No,
I need to double check.
That was made in London, actually.
Maybe London.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think it was because I know was it Paramount? No.
It was
Universal. Universal film. Yeah. But yeah, he played the lead character in that. So he has technically done voice work before.
Aha. So, yeah, there's another way that people can connect him to stuff. And via Jason.
Yes, you may know me from my work with Kevin Bacon in a roundabout sort of way.
So, that Tesco book sounds good.
Yes. Nicely pulled out there.
Right. Yeah,
well done. That was a nice segue.
Yeah.
Put the segue sound effect in there.
Which we don't have yet, but
damn it,
it's going to happen. Someone make us one. Go on. Right. And sort of it's kind of a news story, but it's more of a follow-up to a previous episode when I was talking about Garth Jennings, the director of the Hollywood adaptation of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I said that I thought I'd heard that he was working on an animated film. Well, I've basically discovered that he is via his appearance on another podcast, on the Adam Buxton podcast, which is a very funny podcast with
Dr. Buckules.
Dr. Buckules, who was originally half of Adam and Joe, who used to have an awesome podcast, and then Joe's gone off to be a big film director, and he made Attack the Block. So yeah, he's connected to John Boyega, who's connected to and he's probably connected to Jason, Kevin Bacon somehow. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, he was talking about the animation that he's working on, and he's apparently working with Illumination Entertainment of all people. And he is currently residing in Paris and has been working on that for the last couple of years. And it is currently known as Untitled Illumination Project.
Wow, evocative.
Good. Yeah, very.
There are some cool people attached to that. Like John C. Reilly's one of the
good cast. Yeah,
main leads.
Matthew McConaughey, so it's part of the McConnaissance, whatever you say.
The reconnaissance.
Yeah.
The reconnaissance. What?
Yeah, that thing. Yeah. Yeah, and its synopsis, according to IMDb, is a koala named Buster recruits his best friend to help him drum up business for his theatre by hosting a singing competition. Which, sounds like a kid's movie. But Garth Jennings is awesome.
He's great.
It'd be great if it was like a gritty noir thriller about this koala, you know? Like, because it's left open to interpretation, you never know.
Well, he supposedly came up with a pitch, basically, that made Illumination say, "Hey, do you want to come and live in Paris?" And he's like, "Okay."
Do I have to? Yeah, that sounds charming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it was quite interesting as well that he was talking about Illumination and how they went from like 90 people to then they've got like 900 or something, just in their studio because of the success of Despicable Me, basically, because of those little yellow things.
Oh God.
Yes, but yeah, not really a news story that a film that's probably been on IMDb for ages is happening, but it was the first that we'd really heard about it, so I thought I'd mention it, and I think it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that one. It's coming out next year sometime, so hopefully we'll see some pictures and trailers and stuff before too long. And I guess they've already got Secret Life of Pets coming out next year, so big year for them. They're really doing well, seeing as they've got, is it number 2 now, Minions, or it isn't number 1 yet? Biggest animated film ever at the moment, which
at least one of the most popular, I think.
Yeah, that's
definitely.
what I mean. The money terms, and that does mean that everyone should go and watch Inside Out about 4 more times just to balance it out. But we can't. We don't have the power, unfortunately.
All you can do now is just jump on it as soon as it comes out on DVD. Just get it.
Mm-hmm.
Take our word for it. Just get it.
Yeah, such a good film. And that about sums up the news for today. So it's time to talk about some stuff we've been watching. And I know Dan got to see something very exciting the other week. As a nice follow-up to our Mamoru Hosoda podcast, I know you got to see his new film at the London Film Festival.
Yeah, I did. Actually, so like Yvonne, who's not with us, she was going to be talking about Anomalisa, and I found out that Anomalisa was the secret film at the London Film Festival, which was playing like the day after The Boy and the Beast.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
super gutted. I'm super gutted I didn't get to see it, because the surprise film is like, I went to the surprise film a couple of years ago, like hoping really good. I came out and he told us like, you're gonna like this movie, it's gonna be great. And it was like his cut of the Grandmaster, the Wong Kar-wai like epic, and it was abysmal, and so I don't trust like the surprise film anymore. But now I don't know what to think. Anyway, Boy and the Beast, yeah. So it's Hosoda's was it his 5th film? Is that right?
I think so. I'd have to count.
If you include One Piece, maybe. Anyway,
maybe.
So I really loved Wolf Children. It was really special, and it was really like purposefully paced, and it was quite mature. Boy and the Beast is nothing like that. And as we were sort of saying like last time, he makes films which you wouldn't expect, kind of. So, but basically, I'm going to try and not give too much away. It's really big and loud and fun. The opening sequence is just like this, like recapping of a legend, and it's told like at a kind of campfire, and the campfire just like bursts into life, and these shapes of beasts like jump out, and they fight as the legend is like recounted to you. And I realized, oh wow, this is going to be a really fun movie, and it really was. It was it has a really strong central relationship, which kind of reminded me of The Jungle Book more than anything, actually. It's sort of also a little bit like The Karate Kid, which is, I'm sure it's like a lot of other things, but that was the film that reminded me of the most. And it really like fun relationship, and there are lots of like fantastic fight scenes, lots of like really energetic martial arts sequences, and it's like it was also very funny as well. But it was Hosoda's first film without his regular screenwriter, and as a result, I think it got a little bit messy, and it's slightly overlong and slightly baggy because he sets up lots of plot points which he then has to like run around in the last 20 minutes knocking back over, and it gets a little bit just a bit long in the tooth really, which is a shame because Wolf Children in comparison and Go Collect Through Time are really focused, but there are lots of like Hosoda trademarks happening with, you know, there's a lot of exploration of the real world, and the detail with which it's depicted is breathtaking. There are some amazing sequences in the city, but more than anything, it's just a bit of fun. It's not so much like an emotional epic for me as Wolf Children was. But it's genuinely really, really good fun. And there are lots of things happening in it which sort of, if you're a fan of things like folk tales or of like mythology, there are lots of things that are traditional about it. Like quite Buddhist imagery happening in it. And yeah, so it's good fun. I won't lie, I'll say I was slightly disappointed because it was not, quite as elegant or as tight as, you know, his previous works. But it's still a great fun film. Yeah, that's Boy and the Beast.
Nice. I guess it's probably one of those things where maybe your first watch you'll be like, oh, because it's different, you're a bit disappointed. Right. And then
actually, yeah, that's a really interesting point because halfway through the film, something happens, and it's not like a plot point. Just the film sort of changes a little bit. And up until that point, I was really happy with it being the sort of like fun, energetic film it was. And then about halfway through, it turns into something where it's trying to be a little bit more like Wolf Children or to be a slice of lifey. And then it ends up sort of, there's basically a tension between sort of like really wanting to make something that's fun and energetic and something that is really purposefully paced and sort of touching, and yeah, it doesn't quite pay off. But yeah, you're right. The first thing I said when I came out of the cinema, I said to my friends, I need to see that again because it was quite surprising in how it played out. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching it again, and it was good. I enjoyed it.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Going to be a long wait though, probably before you get to see it again. Because of that film festival thing. Anything else you've been watching that you want to mention at all? Or was that it?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Apart from the regular stuff like South Park this week, which is pretty funny. I think this season's like the more successful than last season in that they're trying to tie everything together in a way that's not too laboured or, and it's kind of working for me.
Yeah, I'm a bit behind. I haven't seen the last. How many is it in now?
I 5 maybe.
Oh,
this week's episode was called Safe Space, and the gist of it is, what if someone filtered your Twitter feed so that all you got were your nice comments, and your view of the world became a bit skewed as a result, and you thought everyone was being very kind to you, when in fact they were not. And it probably won't surprise you to know that Cartman is the person to whom that happens.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
Nothing can surprise me about Cartman.
He's done it all.
Well, I finished up watching season 2 of Rick and Morty, so I'm a bit bereft. There's no more. I went through it all very quickly because I needed to catch up before I lost the opportunity to watch it. So I went through the first 2 seasons. Well, all of it, as it's also known. But I enjoyed doing it that way. There's a lot to be said for pacing yourself and everything. But then also, it's also quite fun just to hammer through something sometimes when it's that good. Yeah, and it was a really awesome ending. I won't say any more. Quite unexpected, I would say. And I also because there's no more, I then gone through and watched loads of I watched the last 2 years panels from San Diego Comic-Con and stuff, just to find out more about it.
Oh, they're great. Dan Harmon does a great Justin Roiland impression.
Justin Roiland does a really great racist Justin Roiland impression. Some of the slips he does, and what was one of them? It was just he made those AIDS references as well, and it just the whole panel is everyone just going oh, for God's sake, Justin. It's what? It's fine. I was in character. It's fine. I love those guys so much. I recently got given the Blu-ray of the Rick and Morty season 1.
Yeah.
And the commentaries on that, so informative. You get to learn a lot about their writer's room and how the hierarchy works in terms of all the writers and how the jokes are passed up through them. But really, what it really teaches you about is how great the cast are at beatboxing and freestyle rapping. Absolute joy. If you can watch the lawnmower dog commentary, it's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It's got some guest people on it as well, hasn't it? The commentary. It's got they heavily implied in one of the panels that they had Matt Groening and some other people doing commentaries on. Is that right?
Yeah. We listened to. It was more than Matt Groening. It was a lot of the guys from The Simpsons and Futurama who had their own commentary track for, I think, the one where they Cronenberg the world up and then flee reality.
Oh wow!
It's
quite a pivotal episode. That.
Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, that's probably the reason that they had them comment on that one. They're full of nothing but praises for the show for good reason. And there's a Penn Ward commentary as well, but I didn't get around to watching that. We put it to a vote. We were recording our DVD commentary last Sunday or the Sunday before, and there was a bunch of us, and we ended up voting for the Groening one.
That's quite a stamp of approval, I'd say, because I'm just going to go out on a limb there. I don't think they do that for Family Guy.
Yeah, no. Plagiarismo.
Yeah.
Is the Blu-ray a British Blu-ray?
Yeah. It's region 2, which is also Australia.
It's the Australian one, is it? Cause
I think so. Yeah.
I was going to say I don't, because it's only just shown on TV over here. So, they showed season 1 and then season 2 straight through. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Blu-ray doesn't come out here because we keep getting shafted with stuff. But you can get the Australian one, and it still works in the UK, and you can get it through Amazon. But it's quite expensive.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, well, I mean, I had a look. It's £20, £21 or something.
It keeps. Well, it keeps going up and down. I was 21. No, I was 23. I was 21. I should order it. Yes. I also watched the original short, which I don't necessarily recommend you do.
You gotta lick my balls, Marty. You gotta cup shaft. It's tremendous.
I love
Absolutely.
that.
Can you imagine being in the pitching? Okay, so Fox rejected it out of hand. They were like, "Oh, so you want to make Futurama?" Which is obviously just obviously somebody on Fox got fired for that decision somewhere. But it's like, okay, so what kind of materials do you have to show us as part of this pitching meeting? It's just like, oh, we're just going to stick to the elevator pitch. I think we'll just keep it short. We got some pictures. Like, no. Break out some video. I'm sure. I mean, you guys, you seem pretty together. It's like, no, please, let's not go there.
And then they show that. And they are quickly escorted from the premises.
Well, they had like a slow 80s clap. They all stand up. I really loved the part where he sucked his grandfather's penis. It was
It's quite amazing that such a, shall we say, sophisticated, nuanced series came out of that.
I don't know if it is, because there are many points at which in which the series just sort of devolves into juvenile, similar sort of humor. I think really.
Yeah, there's a couple of, because like at the end of episode 1, you get that, with the 100 years rickandmorty.com.
But also, like when he just says, "You got to put this way up inside your butthole." The scene.
Yeah, I'll admit, I watched for that very episode today, because I know I've been hearing you guys talking about this show. It's like, well, I might as well, start at episode 1. And I'll admit, there were quite a few bits where I definitely laughed, it's definitely funny, but at the same time, it's like, I hear everything you guys are talking about it, and after, at least as far as episode 1 goes, I don't see it. I know it'll get there. I'll just have to try and stick with it.
I mean, I fell in love with the pilot, because what they did, and this is quite clever, I think, is that they put like a composite version of the pilot that was like, gave you the full plot kind of, or at least 2/3 of it, but in a really condensed way. And the highlight of that is, of course, the moment where Rick throws Morty a rifle, and he's like, "Cover me," and he's like, "Oh, I don't want to shoot nobody." It's like, "They're robots, Rick. You can't hurt them. They're robots." And he fires off and blows one of their legs off. And there's blood everywhere, and this guy's like, "Oh my god, he's bleeding to death." And he's like, "Oh, I don't think they're robots, Rick." He's like, "Oh, it's a figure of speech, Morty. They're bureaucrats. I don't respect them." It's just so, like...
That was funny. That was very funny.
Yeah. Very, very good. Very, very good. And, speaking of those moments where it just devolves into, like, repetition and insanity, there's a cut scene from the first season where there's this device that's getting, like, it's beeping, and the beeping is getting more and more high pitched. It's like, "Morty, it's going to turn our dimension inside out. You gotta help me. Yeah, you gotta hand me that wrench." And he points to this hammer, and he's just like, and Morty's just like pauses, like, the wrench, Morty, the wrench. It's right there. I'm pointing at it. It's centimeters away from my finger. It's like, I think that's a hammer, Rick. It's like, "Morty, just pass me the dimension's going to turn inside out, Morty." And it kind of like rolls on for a while. You can see kind of why they cut it, but yeah, I've talked myself into a cul-de-sac here. You can see the scene.
That's okay.
Yeah, as I said, I watched like some of the panels and stuff, and interesting thing I learned out of that is the fact that they said that the parallel universe TV thing is going to be their Treehouse of Horror, and they're going to do one every season. And it's like,
although, not that I would ever say anything negative about Rick and Morty, because they're, as far as I'm concerned, they're the best thing that's ever happened to television since The Simpsons. Mainly because of like subversion. Like if you look at like Alan Moore in comics, kind of like taking the Silver Age and turning it inside out and being like, "Oh my god, but what if they weren't just people? They were like horrible people." But like how Rick and Morty subverts the sitcom genre in cartoons. It's just like, oh, everything ends up okay at the end, but you won't like how it happens. It's like, it's fine. Everything went back to normal. But it's just like, but what? But But that episode in season 2 where they did the cable TV thing, I think it just, I think the spontaneity of of season 1 was kind of lost on it.
They kind of made a few like purposeful like meta jokes towards that, but the weird and kind of fun thing about the show is that Roland and Dan Harmon are on Twitter, and they tweet quite openly about the show. And after that episode aired, they had a right big old public barmy with each other about like Dan Harmon was saying, "Oh, you to Justin Roiland, he was saying, "Oh, you know." We tried to make the episode. He tweeted just first of all to no one, just saying, "Hope you enjoyed the episode. Yeah, it was okay. But we did as well as we could, as well as we were allowed." And then Justin Roiland kind of tweeted back, like implying that there was a bit of tension between them for that episode. Which, yeah, I know that stuff's always like quite entertaining for me. As much as
they're just airing out their dirty laundry. Yeah, because I saw really that Dan Harmon tweeted him back and was like, "Well, actually, we all worked very hard on that episode, and you could see them like keeping it civil, but it was like, ooh, handbags at dawn."
Not Dan Harmon oversharing, surely not.
No, he went off at someone the other day, just like really, really intensely tweeted at them for hours. Yeah.
But he is going through like a divorce, so he's at best.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they can't see the same therapist anymore, so now Twitter's by default his therapist. I don't know how that works.
Well, he uses his podcast as like therapy. He's openly said that.
Sure. So he's taken the foam bats from The Simpsons to the general public.
Okay, so that's.
But he still makes good TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the perfect example of someone who's a genius, but it's the kind of genius you probably wouldn't want to live with.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean,
no.
Like the less filters you have, the better of the more real and emotional writer you are, but the less of a good person. I mean, you look at any decent novelist of the last 200 years, right?
Yes. All right, I think we've covered Rick and Morty. What else have I been watching? I did want to give a shout out to something that I watched that I enjoyed unexpectedly, because I got a review copy through for an anime series called Nisekoi, False Love, which is like an anime romantic comedy type thing. So not really my particular area of interest, but I got sent a review copy, so I watched it. And sometimes things are really good because they're really original, and sometimes you just have to say that something is just a really, really well done example of what it's trying to do. And that is definitely a case of that, because it's not what you call original by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just so well done, and it's really charming and sweet and stuff, and I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did, but I did. So,
can you give us a little rundown of the plot of what it is?
Yeah, it's basically a bunch of cliches
strung together,
because it starts off with a teenage boy who remembers making a promise to his childhood sweetheart, and then there's this girl that he thinks might be the person who he made the secret to, but then he has to pretend to be someone else's girlfriend, because both their families are gangsters, and apparently gangsters won't kill each other. That old cliche, eh? Yeah, gangsters won't kill each other if there's some love-struck teenagers around. They'll be like, "Oh no, we won't have a gang war because they're together." So even though they hate each other, they're like, "Yeah."
So it's the opposite of Romeo and Juliet.
Pretty much. I kind of find that intriguing.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe the mafia bit isn't so cliche, but yeah. So it's got the sort of arranged marriage thing, and it's got the childhood sweethearts thing, and it mashes them together. And there's a transfer student, a new one, about every 3 episodes. So it's just cliche after cliche, but it's really well done, and I think, there's a whole... Every time a series comes out that it's just like cliches and stuff, there's a whole generation who haven't seen that before, and it's the first thing they watch. They're like, oh, I haven't seen anything like this before. So it's not like the most amazing thing in the world, but if that's the kind of thing you like, it's a good example, and you can get it on Blu-ray or DVD or stream it, and it's on it's got a second season now as well, that's running currently, I think, but you can read my review on the website. Okay, moving on. Rachel, anything you've been watching you want to talk about?
Well, I already mentioned Rick and Morty. I just watched the first episode of that, and other stuff. The one item that I reviewed, I think the review just went up today, actually. A little short film, 25-minute short film called Kaku Renbo, that came out between, I think it was like 2004, 2005 is when it got all of the, it went to a whole bunch of film festivals and got a whole ton of awards. It's basically like it's a little like suspense horror, like short film about, these bunch of kids who hear about this game called Otokoyo, which is played at night in this one specific district of Tokyo. And apparently any kids who go to play end up vanishing, and the rumor is that demons show up and take them away. So the film basically covers these 7 kids, or as if you look at the poster, you can see 8 kids playing this game, and kind of getting wrapped up into the whole, what it's all about, and are there demons, or are there, is it someone just pulling a really, really over the top prank? But if you look at the trailer, you can see it's by the designs, you can see there's very clearly very big, scary demons are in there, so it was really good. I watched that a few years back, and I kind of rewatched it again this year, and I forgot how, like, it's not very big on jump scares, but it's very, very kind of like this creeping dread that kind of hits you full force once you finally get to the ending. So that was fun.
Yeah, I think anime does creepy quite well often. With the way they have demons and stuff, they can be quite freaky. Because obviously you can't scare people quite in the same way as you can with live action in animation, but you can certainly creep people out.
Definitely.
With the right atmosphere and stuff, and by creating really freaky things. Yeah, I hadn't heard of that before I read your review, and it sounds very interesting.
It's good.
Anything else?
It's hard to find, but it's worth seeking out. Something I wanted to talk with Jill is if something I've been following up, the past week or so since it since it started to air again on Disney XD, Star Wars Rebels.
Yes, it's been fantastic so far.
I am so happy Rex is back. Yeah. I can't even tell you. I am so happy that we got those 2 episodes. I mean, understandably, I'm not entirely sure why they had to make it. It had to be 2 episodes instead of just one full one, but maybe that just paced it out better. I don't know.
Well, I guess it helped flesh it out and explore more of the storyline and stuff. Because I liked the complexity of the storyline they went with exploring Kanan's distrust of the clones with the whole Order 66 ordeal. And if anyone's been reading the prequel comics that tie into the series, The Last Padawan.
Yeah, I followed some of those.
Yeah, and it explores what Kanan goes through after Order 66 occurs, and he basically sees his Jedi Master get killed right before his eyes by people they thought they were their friends. Mm-hmm. And everything in him on the run. So, having read those and then watching it play out on the screen, how it affected him as an adult, and how he has a really difficult time trusting Rex and the other clones, that was, I thought, really well done. And it really rewards the viewer if they read those comics or if they were aware of Order 66 as well. So it was a very, I think, layered episode. And
yeah, definitely.
I definitely think it could have been a singular episode, but I'm not complaining that it was split in 2.
Yeah, the whole thing where they had Zeb be the lure for that big worm thing, it was funny, and but I was also kind of like, oh god, no, Zeb.
Yes.
don't let anything bad happen to him.
No,
He's
I
one
don't
of my
think they
favorite
would.
characters so far.
Yeah, but it wasn't a necessary scene or anything. Especially since they ended up getting rid of what they caught anyway, so.
Yeah,
the whole
but
thing
that
kind
entire
of...
sequence in the second part of the episode where they had the big giant Imperial walkers like chasing after them while they're on their tiny little like Republican one in that sandstorm was fantastic. I don't know why, but it gave me it kind of gave me what was it? It reminded me another crazy sci-fi series, Star Trek Wrath of Khan, when they're in that nebula. And they're trying to find each other, and they're completely blind because in the storm, and they're just trying to find each other and make quick strikes at each other. It kind of reminded me of that for some reason.
Right.
Just the tension that it created.
Well, yeah, it was a very intense scene, everything. But overall, the whole episode was fantastic, and I'm glad they actually brought on Rex and the clones back to the Rebel base. And because for a while it didn't seem like they were going to do that, but now they're reunited with Ahsoka as well from Clone Wars. So I think we're in for a good season too.
I'm gearing up for it, especially since the next episode previews. They're introducing one of the new Inquisitors that they've been showing off in all the trailers.
Yes, the seventh sister.
So I'm excited.
Yeah, she seems
Sarah
very
Michelle
sinister.
Gellar, aka the Buffy the Jedi Slayer.
Yes. So it'll be a very interesting season. They're definitely going into much darker territory right now, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Good, so am I.
Yay.
I saw the trailer and it looked badass.
Oh, it is so great. I'm so excited.
Oh yeah, especially. It's really good, and especially with the Siege of Lothal earlier this summer.
Yeah, that was huge.
Mini movie. Yeah, that was huge, and included an encounter with Darth Vader. Basically, essentially the on-screen assassination of a political figure.
Yeah.
In the series, which was surprising on a show geared towards 6 to 12-year-olds.
I don't know. I think the whole thing in the first season where they had where Tarkin had those two guys, those two kind of reoccurring characters, literally beheaded.
Yes.
It's just like they didn't. I mean, they kind of cut away just as it happened, but still, it was very close. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it was very clear what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not afraid to push the envelope on that show, and it kind of surprises me with how much Disney is letting them get away with on there and stuff. But, I mean, I'm loving it, so it's excellent. So if you're not watching it and you like anything Star Wars, it's worth your time.
Definitely.
For sure.
And the only other thing that I've watched recently, I only managed to watch one episode of it, but the K Project anime that had its new season started for that also, and I managed to watch the very first episode of that, and animation is as beautiful as I remember, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they take the plot after all the events that happened in the movie, the in-between movie that they had between season 1 and 2. If I had anything to complain about, it's the fact that they, this season seems to be taking, at least in just this one episode, it seems to be abusing its fan service just a little much for my taste, but that's, to each their own.
Yeah, that's Japan sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that there was a new season of that because I remember you reviewed that, and I also noticed there was a new series of Noragami that you were also a fan of. I wondered if you were going to plan. Well, I assume you're going to watch the new series at some point.
Oh, I definitely am. I wasn't sure if it was out yet. I haven't had a chance to really check and see if they've released a new episode of that yet or not. So I'm gonna have to look into that, and if I find one, I'll watch it, and then I will let you guys know what I think of it.
I think it started. I think
it did. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're a couple of weeks into the new season, as they call it, and all I want to know is why is no one streaming the new Lupin the Third series? That's what I want to know.
There's a new Lupin the Third series?
Yeah, it was made co-production with Italy or something, and it aired in Italy before and it's like the first new TV series they've done in.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, they do fetishize. I mean, it's an Italian car that Lupin III drives, isn't it? So they do fetishize a lot of like Italian culture throughout the series. So
there
kind of makes sense.
There was a series a couple of years ago as well.
Oh, Fujiko Mine, the one it was its own thing, but this is like sequel to the TV series.
Interesting.
The only thing I can assume is that they want to release it properly, and they're not, they're holding on to it for a reason rather than anything else, really.
Well, that interesting. You can actually watch like loads of the old TV series. They've put them on in America. They've put them on Hulu and stuff like legitimately. So I suppose it might come along, but I want to watch it. It's got a blue jacket this time. I think that's the.
Oh really?
Yeah, because each season different
Ruined.
colour jacket.
Forget it.
Not canon. With the jacket colours and Lupin, it's sort of like it's kind of like odd numbers Star Trek movies.
Yeah.
Where you can kind of like literally just his blue jacket is going to be good. I don't know exactly what ones are good and which ones are bad, but he will switch from like blue, red, and green jacket.
But the art I've seen from it looks really. I've actually seen the opening titles, and they are pretty gorgeous. So I want to see more, but I can't. So what am I going to do? Jill, have you been watching anything else you want to talk about?
Pretty much just Gravity Falls lately. That has a really big episode coming out tomorrow.
It's one of the season finale, right?
I think it is the season finale. It sure feels like it. I'm not entirely sure though, just because of how everything's pretty much come together and everything. So we're going to see the results of what they've been building up towards for the second half of this season. So I won't say anything since Chris isn't caught up, and I don't want to spoil him. And that's part of the fun of the show is all the twists and big reveals and all that. Yeah. So I want you to have the full ride, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. But yeah, for anyone else, definitely make sure to tune in and show the series some love. It's still not greenlit for another season by Disney yet, which is odd, since it's doing so well and it seems to be making the studio happy. So we'll see, hopefully, if it gets greenlit soon after tomorrow night. Or
so it is airing tomorrow night? What time?
It is airing tomorrow night. I want to say 9:30. I watch everything on demand now. But I want to say 9:30 since that's the typical time. 9:30 or 8:30.
Is it really at 9:30?
Yeah, I found it's really odd. Like
I guess they really do just want people to record it.
Mm-hmm.
Because what kid is watching anything at that time?
In America? They're watching it pretty late. Yeah, you would be surprised and everything. I'm always surprised. It's more 8:30, I think. Hang on. Let's see.
That's much better.
Let's see. I'm confirming it now. 8 p.m. It's actually going to be a two-parter, too. Ooh. So this is the first part. I thought it was one episode, but it's a two-parter.
Oh my.
Everything. Yes. So 8:00 tomorrow night on Disney XD.
All right, I'm going to record that. I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow night, so I just want to make sure I get that set to record.
Yep. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what they've been building up towards, and I'm sure it's going to be a wild ride.
Yep. It always is with Gravity Falls.
Yes. And that's pretty much all I've been watching. Star vs. the Forces of Evil wrapped up a few weeks ago, and that was excellent. So now we need to wait for season 2, and that actually has Giancarlo Volpe working on it. And he's the man behind Green Lantern, the animated series, which had a lot of emotionally strong moments.
Totally.
So season 2 of Star vs. the Forces of Evil, I would expect to be a very big emotional roller coaster with him on the crew now. So we'll see what happens with that. And Wander Over Yonder is still doing really well as well. I've been watching that as well. And it still is fun as ever. So yeah.
So, Cool. So apparently there's a connection between Gravity Falls and Rick and Morty. There's a little reference. Supposedly.
Yeah, I saw this.
Something gets sucked through a portal in an episode of Gravity Falls, and there is a point where there are loads of portals in Rick and Morty, and if you look carefully, you can see. I think it's a mug and a pen or something that got sucked through the portal in the background. So like,
you have to be watching really closely to see it, but they just even just like 2 or 3 frames, just like just sort of flops out.
and in the second season, there's like in the episode where the parents go on their like marriage like counseling trip. I'm trying to like walk around that episode and not spoil it. There's a point where you can see like a character from Gravity Falls on a screen.
hey.
Wow.
And apparently it's because Justin Roiland and Alex Harris are like good mates.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know like his Justin Roiland's background in voice acting, but now I know that he is Lemongrab. That makes so much sense.
This castle is in unacceptable condition! Unacceptable!
He's such a fantastic voice actor. He's so good. He's been apparently he's been producing stuff in Hollywood for years. You know, like a lot of the people who are working on Rick and Morty are old, industry buddies of his.
Cool.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, like, in the same way that what's the name of the guy from Family Guy? What's his name?
Seth MacFarlane.
Seth MacFarlane was, he was really deeply entrenched in the animation industry. He wrote loads of Dexter's Lab, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I think he was pretty involved in Johnny Bravo as well.
Yeah, really, that too. And Justin Roiland has worked on quite a lot of stuff. And which is funny to look at some of his. I mean, well, Doc and Marty is such a great example. The Rick and Morty.
Oh, also he did a great thing called House of Cosby's?
House of Cosby's, yeah, which is pretty dark looking back on it.
That's brilliant.
It's pretty dark, but it's not flattering to him at all. You can
sure, yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. You get to really hear the range of his voice because he does so many different voices for Bill Cosby and all the different Cosbys.
He actually does a voice in Gravity Falls too.
Really?
Yeah, he's Blandon, the time traveler.
Oh my god! Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that might have been an episode that I watched recently then, because I watched one that had time travel in it. So perhaps that was it.
It probably was.
Yes, it was in season 1. Jason, was there anything you've been watching you want to talk about?
I haven't been watching that much animated stuff recently. I mean, as I said earlier, I've been watching the DVD commentaries of Rick and Morty season 1, which have been really illuminating. Learning how different parts of the crew rely on one another. Like the director of Rick and Morty apparently is very integral to the jokes landing properly, which is really interesting to me as somebody who writes comedy and fails to land jokes constantly. Making me think that I have some members missing on my team. My girlfriend and I spent an evening watching Shimoneta, the really perverted Japanese anime that's just really genuinely very, very funny and really spontaneous. Have you heard of that one?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, not ringing any bells for me either, fortunately.
Although, to narrow it down, perverted anime.
Well, it's not hentai or anything. It's what is it? So it's like a high school that's like a really like politically correct high school. Society is like kind of a little bit. It's a little bit dystopian in that like people are really kind of clamped down on what they can and can't think. And there's this one high school who's like this bastion of ethics. Who are, like the number one sort of, perverted high school. But as a result of that, nobody knows what sex is or like what genitals are or like what they're for and stuff. which leads to these really comic misunderstandings. And there's this one character who's like this kind of perverted terrorist who just like shows up naked with a mask on, and she just like underwear bombs public places, and people run around screaming, and they don't know how to deal with it. It's very, very funny. And I don't say that about many anime. It's very, very, very funny. And yeah, we sat down, and we don't binge usually, but we got through the whole series so far. And anything, I really recommend it. Not since like, oh god, Golden Boy, I suppose, is the most similar anime to it that I've seen, but it's not really saying much. I haven't seen that much anime, to be honest.
I think it's because a lot of anime have like really incredibly long English titles these days.
Yes.
I think its English title is something like about a world where dirty jokes don't exist.
That's exactly it. Shimoneta, a boring world where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the names that they have in anime these days.
Yeah.
Is interesting.
They're strange, but you gotta love them sometimes.
Yeah. No, I often talk about this to people, how free they are to experiment with concepts, whereas like in the West we seem very bound by these kind of like, 7 basic plots style of just like, this hero does this and this person does that, and it's important that these things happen in that order. And in Japan it's like, what if there was a terrorist that used pants as a bomb? It's a wonder.
I'll admit, I don't think, at least I've never heard anything like that before, so.
Well, it's just the stuff that gets funded in Japan. I mean, like, Cat Soup, if you've ever seen that, which is
great, yeah.
Animated by Masaki Yuasa, who you'll know from Mind Games and from that one-off Adventure Time that's all gorgeous. And written by this manga artist called Nekojiro, who actually killed herself towards the end of the 90s. But before she did, she wrote this manga, which is kind of set in this really cute animal world where they're kind of people. It's just that I think maybe their animal representation's a bit animal farmy. And it's like really cute and light and silly, but it's about a child rescuing their sibling from the underworld, and like drowning themselves to get there. And it's really gorgeous and beautiful, and it must cost a real packet to make. And you'd never get a film like that. I mean, it's not really a film; it's like half an hour long. But you'd never get something like that funded here. I just don't think.
No, I think honestly, it's just the fact that it comes with the abundance. So, like stuff like that gets funded, but for stuff like that to get funded on a sort of more regular basis, you have to have a sea of crap, like supporting it in an industry. I think that's unfortunately sort of where more anime is at once just a dirge and the worst, and also the best, and where the most interesting ideas seem to come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for there to be a cream of the crop, there has to be a crop to rise through, and and I guess it's sort of like the law of odds, isn't it? If you've got tons and tons of stuff, one of them's going to be pretty alright, isn't it? Yeah, it's amazing. But I think that in Japan, I mean, the wages that get paid to animators in Japan are sort of legendarily bad. If you look at I think I looked at a schedule of an anime artist the other day, and it's just horrendous. I mean,
it's not fun, and and it really can, weigh on people, but they're not unionized at all, and there's almost this like idea that an idea which would be very quickly poo-pooed here, which is you might not really love it if you don't want to do it for crap money. It's you're right, they really are terrible. I mean, I've heard even on movies, big studios, people are paid a pittance compared to in the West. So I guess that also is where the abundance comes from.
Well, in a sense, I mean, we rely on that in the West as well. I mean, all of our studios are in Indonesia or in Korea now. And it's like, yeah, why are we doing that? Well, it's for that exact reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
as for anything else that I've been watching, not much really. Just I've been like rewatching Xavier Renegade Angel from Adult Swim, which is just I don't know if anyone's that familiar with some of the more obscure like Adult Swim stuff. Sorry,
I've not heard of that. Xavier
it's
Renegade
brilliant.
Angel.
Okay, so do you ever see Wonder Chosen?
Yeah.
So same guys as Wonder Chosen.
Oh right.
So they made 2 seasons of it. Second one's pretty good. First one is absolutely brilliant. And it's this glitchy, like old, sort of, Shenmue style PlayStation graphics-y, animated series, about this wandering snake-handed, sort of anthropod guy, who's like, it's kind of like, Kung Fu with, what's the name of the guy who hung himself with a belt cord?
David Carradine.
David Carradine. I could have just said Bill, but I went straight for the autoerotic asphyxiation. Classic Jay goes straight for the autoerotic. So yeah, and it's like him in Kung Fu, just wandering from place to place writing wrongs, except he creates the wrongs and then doesn't write them, and it's really funny. And it's great. It's great. It's really, really good. Big sort of David O'Reilly vibes in terms of like how like there's loads of like audio jokes where it's just kind of like things repeating weirdly and little motifs just like repeating in the background, and it's good for if you're like eagle-eyed and you like.
I'm always astonished by what Adult Swim greenlight and also like make 2 seasons of. They're the best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did you ever see 12-Ounce Mouse?
Yeah, you showed me that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, then you see 12-Ounce Mouse.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I can't describe how basic the animation for that is. It's not even that the animation is basic, though it is. It's more that the drawings were all done on, like, you can see the back of, on the back of the drawings that they've got, there's like, you can see text, because they've used like
scrap paper,
misprinted printer paper to draw them on. And the pilot of 12-Ounce Mouse, I have been watching maybe once every 4 or 5 months since I was about 18 years old. And I'm 29 now, and it's just like so good. The best opening scene of any cartoon I've ever seen, and that includes a lot. Just because it's so funny and so weird. And it smacks of, because they made a whole series of it, it smacks of a pilot that was greenlit, that was never expected to be greenlit. So they just kind of, it was all like this rolling, like, stream of consciousness madhouse. And then they get to the end of the episode, and then that was like, great, okay, we'll take a season. And they're like, what? So all of these concepts that are loosely touched upon now have to be justified in like a wider reality. So they make whole episodes about them, and it's not very good because they're really kind of clutching at straws. But that pilot, that perfect pilot, so funny, so good.
So it's a bit like when they make a movie based on a trailer.
Yeah, actually, yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Like Machete or whatever.
That's a good way of making things, except for the reason I just specified.
We have to put the bit in where they've got the guns for boobs or whatever, because it's in the trailer.
Yeah. Okay. How do we justify that now? In a world where guns are boobs. But yeah, aside from that, nothing really. That's just what I've been up to lately.
Okay, so shall we get into our main topic and talk about Sam Sweetmilk?
Yeah!
How Datch was that? It was pretty Datch.
What?
Datch. It's a new swear word I'm trying out. Can you strike that one off the list, please?
Specify list?
10 super fun things Ghostworth never let me do.
List deleted.
What? Why?
Deletion source, crew member Ghostworth.
Right, so we're going to talk about some Sam Sweetmilk.
Yep.
you were talking a bit about the concept before, but how did it all get started? It's a good place to start, I suppose.
Sure.
As good as any.
So, in about 2009, I was in a bedsit in South London writing a glam rock odyssey, which was called Spandex. And I had started writing it in university, and it was set in 1979. It was about two rival glam bands, one going the commercial route, one going the grassroots kind of way, vying for popularity. Each of them unknowingly in the shadow of punk, which was a wave that was about to crash. And it was about the main character kind of wandering around the earth and picking up bandmates as he went along to create this sort of glam rock super band called Glamfetamin. And I got really genuinely bored about halfway through writing this thing, and I had to remind myself that writing was fun. So Archer had just been out for a little while at that point. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll write something, I like cartoons, I'll write something animated. So I wrote this script called Captain Sweetmilk, Sex Venturer, which is very, very similar to the first episode we made. And there's some scenes that are lifted from it wholesale, except that Vela, whose original name was Cora, but we had to change that for obvious reasons. That she was this bored baroness on this space station, and Sam was this horny idiot daddy's boy on his sort of like on this bought spaceship. Ghostworth was Japanese.
Oh my god!
Wow.
And it starts with them hitting a cat in space in the middle of just nothing in every direction forever. And it's this really awkward moment where Sam goes out with a shovel to pick it up. God knows why he'd need to do that. And and the cat's still alive. And he's like, oh God. So he puts his foot underneath its head and goes to like lift the shovel up, like put it out of its misery, and he's crying. And then he whacks it, and this cat's like off into space. And he's like, oh no. and it's this carry on. I had a great, actually it opens up with a captain's log that's narrated by Sir-Ian McKellen, and it's the diary of a 5-year-old talking about how their day went at nursery, and that was going to be a repeating motif throughout every episode.
Oh my gosh.
And it just was going to make no sense whatsoever, and I had so much fun writing it that I dropped the spandex entirely and started writing episodes of what I later made into something else, which was Sam Sweetmilk, which was the working title that stuck. Eventually, I settled on Sam of Space, which I still like better, but I think a little bit too invested now to change that.
Just a tad.
So you came at it as perspective as more of you're a writer over an animation person.
Yes.
Aha. Which is a different perspective to what we've had before.
Certainly, yeah. And I think there's definitely downsides to it, unfortunately. Like, I love board-driven shows, and the way I think is board-driven, so my scripts are about 3 times as long as they ought to be. But I don't think there's ever reattaining that feeling of just that purity of concept. Like if you look at like Natasha Allegri's Being Puppycat, she did the boards and then she animated it, and like you have that coherence throughout it where you can tell, oh yeah, that's exactly what she wanted and that's exactly as she thought it would look like. Whereas if you're kind of pushing your awkwardly described vision through about 7 or 8 hands, you don't have that cohesion in the same way. But to try and fill the gap, like I got a scholarship to study production at the animation workshop in Denmark, which wasn't very long. It was only a few weeks, but I learned a lot from that, and from being around people who were as passionate about making cartoons as I wanted to be around, and then I think so. A lot of when you're going the writing route, which I actually recommend, because I think a lot of artists, just from what I can tell, without criticizing anybody, seem to come at a project like they're going to be the one who does everything, and they'll do these pitches and do that. And I think you need a lot of experience to make things that look really good. So I feel really happy that I was able to just recruit people outright to make stuff, and it kind of skipped over that kind
Very
of
cool.
that sort of thing. But I lucked out. I don't know if you heard of him. This guy Dan Hamann came and animated it Just absolutely fantastic. I mean,
Who's that guy?
Yeah, I was there for like
No, never heard of him.
for like a couple of months, I think. Is that right?
yeah, it was a good long while. You can still see. Well, it was the cleanup, right? It was you sat down with Hawk and did a lot of cleanups and color.
Yeah.
And we
Lots
lived
of like helmets and
yeah, the line art helmet that we kept for the whole thing. Thank you very much. Other benefits of being a writer who goes at something, I guess.
But like the team that you put together was fantastic.
I really just lucked out. I mean, I wish I could be able to tell people, oh yeah, you just do this, like a cheat code. I just completely lucked out. I showed up at a really good year of graduates at AUB, University of Bournemouth. And I showed up out of my mind on Adderall with a fistful of business cards at the screening show. And I'm not prescribed Adderall, and I don't buy it on the black market, but there was this random American I met at a bus stop, and she came to my house, and there was a bunch of it. It was back where, so Dan, when Dan stayed and did the cleanup, we were living in this 5-story house in Bethnal Green in London, which was financed by a friend of mine who, through kind of a long kind of contrived way, had this very big house and filled it with people that he found interesting. And one of those people was me, for God knows why. And she came and she bored the socks off everyone, but she did have this big pocket full of prescription drugs. And fast forward a few steps, and there I am at this screening, and I see this short called The Swan, by Michal Golek and Håkon Ziegler and a few other people, and it was just amazing. And it's still, I was talking to an AUB grad yesterday actually, and he was saying it's still like a fan favorite among current students there. Just like the parallax effect with like the sun streaming in through the windows of the truck into the church, and that they've done. It's folly to try and describe it. It's gorgeous, and it didn't make any sense at all. So it struck me as like a captainless ship that I could appropriate. So I really like had a hard sell on getting those two on board. And then I stole 6 months of their life, and then never get back. But I mean, aside
for the better. I mean, you really got some great work out of them, I think.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, and so I can't talk about the art in the episode without mentioning Toby Clayton, who is an old friend who was the brother of an old friend of mine, and I knew him as a really brilliant artist, and I'd seen some of his work before, so I got in touch once I had this first script, and I was like, hey, do you want to collaborate on something? Like, I can't pay much, but I can pay for some concept art and stuff. And he was like, yeah, cool, and we sort of like talked it over, and we went through loads and loads of drafts, and ended up with the final designs for Sam, Vela, Ghostworth, and the villain, the Avianaut, who you haven't seen yet, who's coming in the next episode.
Oh.
And Toby basically killed himself working and made that full animatic that makes up the lion's share of the first episode. And his line work is fantastic, and his poses and expressions, his backgrounds are gorgeous, like really well made. He always plans them out beforehand, so all of the what do you call it, the layouts really make sense, and the angles that he uses, really, really good. Dumb luck is the only way I can describe how I got such a great artistic team on for every episode so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to say, from what I've seen for the 2 episodes, I really am digging the character designs for all 3 of the principal characters. And like you said, the backgrounds, at least from what the hell was in the episodes, was really, really impressive. So I cannot wait to see more. Because
thanks very much. I mean, I can't say thanks. I say on behalf of them, because they, like I said earlier, they're gods with flames burning out of their eyes. But I'm just a pretender. I'm just the person who pulled them in the same room.
And I have to say, at least with what I've the 2 episodes, Ghostworth's already my favorite character. I mean, Sam is close second, but I have to say he's probably, I love the fact that the first 2 episodes you have is a little arc with him and having to just deal with Sam's bullshit.
I'm really happy that we ended up getting enough funding to make the second episode, if anything, to just show Ghostworth as being anything more than just a tragic character who bad things happen to. And B, show Sam as being anything but being more than a child. People were saying in the comments after the first episode, like, I really wanted that Sam guy to die at the end. He had no redeeming qualities. He was a vehicle for jokes, it seemed, and was just and Ghostworth was being used as a foil, despite being the most emotional and resonant character in the thing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. And and then there was the thought when the first 2 Kickstarters failed, which they did. That I wasn't going to be able to be like, oh, but actually, by the way, these characters who I care a lot about aren't what you're thinking. And I'm really glad that we got to do that, because I feel like we left the last episode with everyone really where I want them to be. I don't know if that's an egotistical way to put it, but like, I want people to think what I think they thought at the end of the last episode.
No, I totally get what you're saying, especially when you're writing out these characters. You definitely, like, when you're trying to introduce them to an audience, you'll have a first impression, but then, people will think about the character a certain way, and then you're just like, oh no, wait, there's more to them than that.
Yeah, that was
Wait for it.
Yeah, and especially when you have like a short amount of time to make an episode, and you've thought about this entire world and these characters' inner lives and how they would approach like almost every situation. It must be like really difficult, really, to distill that in a really efficient way.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you get the right idea of either character, it's purely by accident. I'm terrible at explaining my ideas, for the reasons you just said. Because, you get so wrapped up in it. It's like, oh yeah, of course everybody knows this really obscure thing that I haven't explained whatsoever. So it's fine. I just won't mention it. I think the whole series smacks of that, really, because we just hit the ground running and everyone's like, okay, so he lost his memories? I think you mentioned that twice in the whole episode, but it somehow underpins everything and it's really important. It's like, yes. It's like, right, so are we going to find out about that, or you're not going to explain it? It's like, yes.
No, I think there is definitely a sense that like you're building a world and there's a wider world. You certainly get a sense from the last episode of like the vastness of space and the possibilities of everything they could encounter.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, I'm glad that came across. Yeah, I mean, I sort of, the concept is that there's this big, vast universe of people who have evolved far past causing problems for one another ever. And then Sam shows up, who's kind of like this agent of chaos, like the Mask. And he's lost and he's childish and he's hurt and angry and he's kind of going out in every direction at once. And then you've got poor Ghostworth who's tagged along and he's no idea why he doesn't just leave, which we give him the opportunity to, of course, in the last episode. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to expanding that in the next episode. And we definitely do. We really do. It's, we get to show how the two of them met Vela, and we get to show how the Birdman that Sam mentions in the opening scene of episode 1 comes into it, and then we also cut to a little bit later on, which is episode 3. So it's about 2/3 episode 0 and 1/3 episode 3. So it's a little bit disingenuous to say that we're making episode 3, because technically we are, but. And yeah, I'm just, really looking forward to expanding the universe and kind of having more satisfying arcs.
Nice.
Yeah, you definitely build up a universe like in the small details, I think, because you can just spell things out like really obviously. That's another way of doing things, but it can come off really clunky.
Yeah.
But I think that if you've just got someone saying, this is how the universe works, and blah, 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 then I think it's much better to tell it, like, in small details, like what you've done, really.
Yeah, that was really well done.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, you hint at little aspects of a large shape, right? Like if you describe the shape, then the shape could be more sort of simple and straightforward than you think, but the more that you leave untold, the more people's, imaginations can do it. It's as much about what you don't describe, I think. And we don't describe anything, which is, must be really engrossing.
I think so, personally, because that's the whole thing with animation and just film in general. Show, don't tell.
Sure. Yeah, sure. And we don't really show or tell anything, for the most part.
Then you're on the right track.
That's what they tell me.
I just have to say that I was watching the preview for the third episode or whatever, and when I heard who was doing the voice of the villain, I was watching it on my own, but I did actually say out loud, "Oh my god!" Colin McFarlane.
Colin McFarlane, the
he's amazing.
The poison whiskey drinking commissioner from The Dark Knight, and also many voices from the Dennis the Menace cartoon series.
He's a bit of a legend in Britain.
He's all over the place.
Up all over the place.
He's the voice of Cocoa Puffs.
He's that voice.
For me, he will always be the cop in that episode of Black Books.
Yes. Okay, so I'll tell you how I met Colin McFarlane. So I was on a train going up to Lincoln because he lives in Lincoln, where I'm from. And I sat next to him because we had clearly both taken advantage of the same discount offer, and we're both on these $5 tickets. And he sits down next to me, and I clock him, and I'm just like, and I point at him, and he's like, yes. And I was like, you were in Black Books, and he just had this blank look, and he was like, nobody ever says Black Books. And I was like, oh yeah, and he was like, yeah,
the Dark Knight.
And he was like, yeah, I was in the Batman films, and I was like, oh wait, oh okay, cool. So what was it like What was it like working with the Black Books guys? And he just went off on one. He was just saying how great it was to work with Bill Bailey, and didn't really see much of Bernard Black. What was
Dylan Moran.
Dylan
Moran. And we got talking, and he gave me a business card because I've been ranting on about myself, which I do. It's awful. So I got in touch with him and was just like, look, I'm making this short, and I just came so I used to be a roadie, for about 7 years, and I'd just come off this big double tour, like a summer long tour, and I had about, I used to make about $6,000 a year, and I lived off that while I was writing. It was horrendous. And I had that $6,000. And I was like, I need to lock myself into this project, or I'm never going to make it. So I'm going to spend a good enough chunk of money recording you doing this episode, which we never ended up making. So I have these really expensive MP3 files for years, for years and years. And we recorded him for the episode that luckily I've kept mostly intact that we're making next. And yeah, he's great. He's got a voice like Cthulhu, just really looking for, because the Alienaut is this 7 foot tall, glowering face of religious zealotry, and just fits him like a glove. He's just brilliant. He also voices Secateur, who's the head of the Automatic Empire, which is this robot empire that you learn about in the next episode as well.
Ooh, exciting!
All right.
He was also recently in Doctor Who, and they completely squandered him and killed him off.
Oh yeah, that was awful.
Yeah,
I was like, come on!
Yeah,
You've got that guy with that voice, and you turned into a ghost.
Oh.
To be fair,
That's
Ghosts in
clever.
Doctor Who do have a pretty, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the end for them when they die.
Yeah, but he didn't have any lines.
It's like
That was
Chekhov's
the problem,
gun.
no
It's like,
lines.
when's he going to speak?
Yes. So I'm looking forward to hearing him, definitely, and finding out more about the universe and the robots and stuff. That sounds awesome.
Oh, great. Oh, I'm glad.
So Jason, I've got to ask you, like, the tone that you've got is really unique. It's kind of like slightly melancholic at times, and I really like that you're not, you're not doing that thing where it's like, I got to keep your attention all the time, and you're quite happy to sort of let the characters just sit there for a second and actually be, because that's the moments where, you know, characters kind of reveal themselves more than anything else, really. So I just want to ask, like, what do you do to, like, stay on track with things like that?
I mean, I think the key, so my writing style, I've named it the find a parachute on the way down method. So I just start writing with no idea how it's going to go, or some vague idea of, like, maybe, but usually it's held together by the jokes I want to tell. So it's like, okay, so how do we have, this one line that's completely disparate from the entire universe, and you have to really think yourself into a circle to get there. But in the waiting times between these episodes, sometimes you have the moments that seem to draw people to the cartoon and seem to be the primary selling point of the show. So that's one thing. I mean, what I kind of find in Western cartoons is exactly what you say, that sort of ADD of, you know, it's like, this is happening and everyone's yelling all the time. And while that's great for clarity, you know, everyone always hears the jokes and everyone's, you know, under no pretense over who's doing what at what time. I do feel like a little bit of realism is lost somehow, and the suspension of disbelief is lost. And I think in sci-fi that's pretty key. It's a linchpin. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of example. I mean, can you name an example and I can tell you why? In a scene?
Oh, not really. There's something quite natural about how the characters interact, basically.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sure. Well, I think that's
just
part
the
of that.
interaction with Sam and Vela and the condom.
Yes,
Whilst the comedy
that was so great.
I mean,
I love that joke.
I mean, were you guys in the room together when you recorded that?
No. Trisha Pierce is in LA, so I just have her re-record things a million times, much to her detriment and the lack of sanity. And she's fantastic. I mean, that line at the end of the scene, where I mean, it was an intended joke where, you know, Sam's like, what, so I'm unattractive? And she's like, no. Well, to me, technically, but that doesn't matter. And her delivery of that really brought a lot of humor to the line where there was none, I don't think, on the page. And it's true of a lot of lines in the first episode too. But in terms of having it all natural, that was a much longer scene originally, so I kind of it meandered a lot more, and there was a lot more pauses. And it didn't originally end with Sam not knowing what sex was. That was actually a creation of mine and our co-producer, Anna Estevalos. She came over and I was like, look, I'm having trouble with this scene. I think Sam comes off as kind of a dick, and a bit of a misogynist, which he isn't. He just doesn't really know what he's doing. And she was like, well, let's explore that. Why doesn't he know what he's doing? And the scene came out of that. But in terms of like
that was really surprising. I really liked that, actually. That actually was a great insight to who he is, and certainly, like, from what you were talking about,
people not liking him from the first episode you did. I certainly left this episode with a much stronger understanding of maybe why I might want to take pity on him a little bit.
Yeah, same.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's definitely I don't think the tragedy of his character came across in the first episode whatsoever. And we kind of, because we go back to episode 0, we go to like old Sam, where he's like really quite mentally young and still on this adventuring kick. And then when we get to skip over to the third episode, I'm hoping, because the dynamic between Sam and Ghostworth changes quite a lot between these episodes, you know, because so the concept was, with classic Ghostworth, it was about breaking his personality, and then with new Ghostworth, it was about resetting him, like a bone that had broken and set wrong, you know. So he was set into this idea of like, I'm a tool, I'm a robot, I'm a utility. It's my job to do whatever I'm told. And it took his own death to kind of pull him out of that and have him actually recognize the fact that he's got more of a personality than that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a problem with it, which he clearly did, you know. And so in the new episode, it was about retraining him, you know. So it wasn't really Sam that had the problem across either of the episodes, I suppose. But then I guess that's, you know, I can't really comment on that too much because that's mostly up to the interpretation of the audience.
Well, now we're more endeared. We're definitely more endeared to Ghostworth, as I said before. So far, he's my favorite character. But now, you know, with the second episode, with the hints that you've dropped about, you know, how the whole, you know, memory wiping thing has affected Sam. You know, how, you know, there's more of a character to be found with him, and that, you know, will be continue to be, you know, see layers of as we, you know, as episodes come out. So that's exciting.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to giving more of an insight, you know, into Sam's private moments. You know, not ones where he's showing off or doing what he thinks he's supposed to be doing. I'm really excited. I'm really glad. So we're nearly at funding now, and you know, I'm just getting more and more excited about it. You know, I'm spending every free moment thinking about how this next episode is going to play out and what the structure of it's going to be like. Yeah.
I'm interested in... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go first, Jill. You first.
I'm interested to learn more about Bella and her character, because we haven't seen a whole lot of her, but she is an intriguing character since she's by herself on this huge space station, middle of nowhere, basically. So I'll be interested to learn more about her character in the future.
Yeah, there's definitely there's more to be explained, and it does get explained, you know, in part. Although one teaser is that she doesn't actually know that much about her past, or at least the context of it, which is something that we're going to be exploring as well.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So, little drop of mystery for you there.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask about, at least because you mentioned, you know, the funding, the whole thing. How has that been working out for you in terms of, you know, reaching out to the, you know, general public through the internet in order to help fund, you know, this project?
It's been going surprisingly well. Episode 1 was the first thing that I had ever made. We made some production videos beforehand, but it was like just straight off, you know, my student film, so to speak, because I studied writing. I never studied, you know, anything film at cinema. So I was editing it, which is why the pace was so glacial. And I was just kind of amazed that we got the funding that we did. And I think it's completely, down, to just sort of like luck for the most part, that we got to put it in front of so many people. We lucked out. We ended up on the front page of Reddit with the preview, the 5-minute preview, because I put this sob story on there about, you know, oh well, you know, I've been working for the last 3 years and saving up, and now we got a pilot, because Reddit loves a story. They love a bit of narrative to go with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
And like, yeah, in terms of funding the thing, I mean, we raised $34,000 the first time around for the first episode. We still didn't make funding, and on Kickstarter, obviously, you get nothing if that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, having failed 2 Kickstarters and only half realizing a third one on Indiegogo, I don't know if I'm in a position to talk about funding, successful or otherwise. I mean, we went to such lengths. I messaged every Redditor individually who had ever commented on a thread or post of ours, which was upwards of 500 or 600 people, with personalized messages that commented on like what they had said or what their username was in some cases.
That's dedicated.
Yeah.
I spent so many days doing that. And like, a friend of mine was like a cam girl, so she was like urging her viewers on her cam modeling page to like donate to the cartoon, so there was money coming from that.
Wow.
Which is bizarre. And oh god, what else? We members of the team were like putting money in to bump it up, so that when it did fail, it was a really good looking failure that we'd be able to pitch around with. Just, you know, everybody rowing in the same direction. And, you know, a lot of people put in a lot of time and a lot of effort to make that first episode happen. Most notably, Toby, because Toby took a good solid year out of his life unpaid to make that thing. and I'm indebted to him forever, really. But yeah, I think in lieu of actual funding, it's all just effort. I mean, I'm really heavily into debt from the last episode. I've been working 80-hour weeks, 40 hours on my day job and another 40 in the evenings and weekends on the cartoon.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's crazy. But it's really starting to pay off, I think. I mean, the last episode had people waiting for it.
Yeah.
Which must feel great.
Yeah, and then we got to talk about it. You know, when we made updates, people were like, "Oh, cool!" Which is like, you need that encouragement when you're making stuff. Otherwise, you're just kind of writing or drawing into the dark. You know.
And I think also, like, I have no idea. I don't think there is a model for it that works, that anyone really understands. But one thing that seems to sort of help when you're making something and you're trying to accrue a sort of internet fan base is to just constantly remind people that you're not dead and that something's still happening. People get
we made no videos for like a year, you know.
Right.
And then after we had done that, we went on to make no videos for another year after the one that we made. And it's amazing that we have any fans. We were losing like 60 YouTubers a week on our subscribers to our YouTube channel, and God knows how we've ended up okay out of it, frankly. I mean, and every other internet-only animated series has had some industry or fan base behind it. So like your Bravest Warriors had Adventure Time, your Bee and Puppy Cat had the anime crowd and the Frederator backing. Sun Creature Studios, The Reward had the institution that is the Animation Workshop, but also all of their links to, you know, all the animation houses in LA, in Atlanta, in New York.
Exactly.
Big fanfare. And also they were Dungeons and Dragons, which has always been associated with quite a lot of money because people are willing to spend a lot of money on Dungeons and Dragons related stuff. And then we show up and it's just like, oh, well, it's kind of sort of like, well, no, it's not really like that. No, it's like nothing. Please spend money on it.
but it seems like the internet is a really cruel, unforgiving place for people who want to make animation and primarily put it on the internet.
Yeah.
Because when it comes to YouTube, certainly, their algorithms and their sort of advertising revenue algorithms are really unforgiving for animators because it's all based on how quickly you can put things out. And as I'm sure you might have an idea, animation takes a long time to make. And animators on YouTube, the impression I get from independent animators on YouTube is that they feel they're constantly shafted, purely from the sheer fact that their content takes longer to make than, you know, someone who can do a Let's Play video or you know, 10 Let's Play videos a day.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that those algorithms working that way. And, you know, like, what, should we be making a, you know, Sweetmilk reacts to the Royal Baby video every fucking day? You know,
no.
It's just such a, it's, you know, and I'm not saying that it's, you know, a less valid, I mean, if you look at what Game Grumps are doing with it, they're genuinely very, very funny people. And, you know, like Markiplier, etc. And, you know, it's an industry that makes sense because every new game that they play, they pick up a fraction of that game's audience. And it makes sense. It's logical. But like you say, I really think there ought to be some kind of forgivenesses for the animators because they've got their work alongside, you know, the industry, and animation and, you know, industry level animation looks really, really good. And you get to see what happens when you don't have that studio backing, when you see individual animators from these studios, like Titmouse have these 15-second, are they 50-second or 1 minute shorts that they make? So every animator is allowed to just like take a day off each month or week or what have you to make their own little private project to keep them sane, I guess.
Wow.
And you get to see that the quality of these things is really just, you know, it's YouTube animator quality stuff. And when you've got that work alongside industry stuff, but you've also got the time pressure of YouTube's algorithms, you create work that either, you know, you really have to put the work in. And I just...
You either put the work in or you find
like a really cheap, get around, and you end up with that sort of like mouth replacement animation that was popular in the 70s. Do you know what I mean? When they had a cutout mouth and they'd sort of superimpose someone talking so they could cheat on lip sync. But something that I really like that you do with Sweetmilk is that it is like it's you say it's not storyboard driven. I know what you mean by that, but it's very visual, and it's you have to watch it still to enjoy it, and the layouts are telling the story as much.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, when I say board driven, I know what you mean, but when you say board driven, it's more like how the joke, like physical humor, like this little, like tiny little gestures and things like that. But and I mean, what was I going to say? I mean, I think that maybe it's just not the place for us, Like, I know that it's the only place that we are, but I don't know what the future is. Honestly, like, you can't pitch it in the UK because we don't have big budgets over here, and nobody would probably watch it,
Well, we don't have big budgets, and also the industry in the UK is primarily skewed towards preschool, and you rarely get things for like even 7 to 11-year-olds.
Yeah, and you get great work from this side of Europe. I mean. You look at like Puffin Rock from Cartoon Saloon is absolutely gorgeous, and they're really pushing what you can do. But yeah, I would like to see the industry over here blossom because we make some of the best comedy in the world, and yet there's a whole section of comedy that's unavailable to us for reasons of budget, and so we just export reality TV concepts in lieu of something unique or original. I really feel like people are going to look back on this period as like the Dark Ages, like people are starting to understand that it's like how rock and roll was just the 12-bar blues in like the 1930s and 40s, and and then Little Richard comes along and blows everything up, and you're starting to see that now. It's starting like, oh yeah, actually, animation is for grown-ups, and you can tell some really interesting themes uniquely through them. Like if you look at what BoJack Horseman and Rick and Morty are doing, they're single-handedly pioneering this concept. And I hate the term, but I really like that there's an umbrella term for it. It's the sadcom, and that's what they're calling it now. Because if you have these, I hate the term sadcom, because critics like to feel ownership over something, so they give it a name, and it's like, yeah, I did that. I have ownership over it somehow. But it's more. It's not because it's sad. It's subversion. So if you look at The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt on Netflix, which if you've seen it's fantastic. But what that is it's a live action cartoon with this kind of. It's kind of floating on a sea of sad, but it's so thick with its saccharin that you can't see through to it, but except for in glimpses, and it's really, really clever. And with animated sitcoms in the sadcom genre, which actually The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is also part of, you see that these things, the sadness is, I guess it's like, is it irony? Or I'm still trying to come to terms with it, really, like what this movement in animation means. It's breaking out. It's drawing a line under the things that are said because you can relate to them easier. Maybe it's because the simplistic faces or, like, I think I was reading a psychological study that was saying that you can relate to cartoon characters and animated characters much more intensely than you can live action characters a lot of the time, despite the lack of facial expressions and what have you. Because it's just easier to understand that way.
We've spoken about this before on the podcast a little bit about how that weird extra level of abstraction or distance that animation gives you allows you for some reason, certain ideas can be played out in a way that's slightly less painful and a little bit more introverted, maybe in as much as they're not happening to other people. It's something which is being expressed, and you're feeling it inside you because you're looking at a couple of eyes that are really simple, and you're kind of thinking, what part of that is me? On its most like narcissistic and base level, I think that's what cartoons are.
Yeah. No, I think you're on the money there. It's about avoiding the pain of living through, I mean, that's why people watch entertainment, right? They want a little period of time where they don't exist. And they want to take a moment out, and they want to be, like entertained and kept busy, which is why animation is so quick and, like to distract you and everything. But you want to have this realness, this depth of emotion, this range. And with the simplicity of it, there's no pain in it. There's just an evaluation of what these things mean and how they apply to the characters. And I think this is a much bigger topic with the like widening infantilization of society as people become more and more babied, and as kind of topics get everything's so random and ironic and silly. I could give you some examples. Like there's a big new office block going up near my work. It says "White Collar Factory" on the outside of it, like in this kind of funny, ironic kind of. But that's exactly
vile.
what it is. And the only way you can get away, and it's just like, and I think maybe cartoons are riding that wave. Maybe they're part of this zeitgeist of like simplifying, like, this passing into adult life, getting really, really complex and being simplified because it's getting more and more painful and it's getting more and more difficult, Certainly for the millennial generation, but as I say, it's a much bigger discussion.
No, I think that's there's something in that, and also on another level, I think that the generation that are sort of like in their like mid-20s now, mid to late 20s, probably watch more cartoons than their parents did. So they're simply probably just a little bit more accepting of cartoons as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, cartoons are cool.
Yes,
So.
they are very much are.
Don't worry.
Yeah, we're in danger of getting a bit too deep there. So, and I think it's getting to about the time that we should be calling it a night. But before, I did just want to ask, if this is not too big a scary question, but what after you've got episode 3 coming up? Do you have plans for next? Are you you planning more episodes or? What's the future for Sam Sweetmilk?
So, to address the wider context of that question, like we're going to be pitching it around and trying to kind of move it forward. But in the States, they don't want British main characters, and Adult Swim wouldn't have us because they have their sci-fi show. The earlier anecdote about Fox rejecting them because it was too similar to Futurama is just a perfect example of that. And the reasons I said about the UK. I think really we're just going to keep crowdfunding episodes in this way and just make the best one so kick-ass people can't resist funding it. And, I've got the first series planned out. There's 10 episodes. And then I've got the synopsis for the second series and how that carries on, and every character is just explored, but nobody's really too fully explored. It's not like, who's Vela's sister? We haven't talked about that, everything's really, really purposeful.
Good. That's a really good way to go about writing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all part of this grand cosmic narrative, in the same way that, I'm not going to compare us to Star Wars, but, you have this really big story, and in order to get around not having a really big budget, it's all about the connections between the characters and making, really strong characterization. And that's kind of what we strive for.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an awesome conversation.
Thanks very much. It's been lovely.
It's been. And if you'd like to use this opportunity, basically to do a nice little plug, if
the last 10 minutes of doom and gloom weren't enough, I If you like Hitchhiker's Guide, Archer, Venture Brothers, Rick and Morty, we're nowhere near as good as any of those, but we share some basic concepts or skirt them. You know, in the Venn diagram of that, it's basically the MasterCard logo, but if you like push them really far apart till they're just touching, God, it's hard to plug something when you're drowning in it. I've got no distance. If you like to laugh, if you've got an interest in animation, we're part of a movement that's not got very many members right now in terms of shows like ours. So you might be watching something anthropologically interesting, if nothing else.
Oh, and where can they find you?
Let's skip over that. We're on YouTube, so it's youtube.com/Sam Sweetmilk. We're running an Indiegogo campaign at the moment. We're at 21 and a bit thousand out of 24,000, and it runs out in 5 days. You can't buy yourself as a character on the show anymore. That $9,500 perk has been bought up. But you can buy other things like posters and DVDs.
Cool. And you're on Twitter?
We are at Sam Sweetmilk. We're also at Sam Sweetmilk on Instagram, Sam Sweetmilk on Tumblr, and /Sam Sweetmilk on Facebook.
Okay, awesome. And where can we find you on the internet this week, Dan?
You
can every week.
You can find me at Hamu on Twitter.
And Rachel?
Find me at Fail2Ninja on Twitter.
And Jill?
You can find me on Twitter at Shield Maiden.
Awesome. And I am Mr. Christor on Twitter, which is Mr. as the word, then Chris, then TOR. And you can follow AFA blog on Twitter. You can find us on Tumblr, Pinterest, Facebook, and animationforadults.com. And thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back very soon. Thanks again to Jason. It's been awesome. And go watch Sam Sweetmilk because it's great. And we will catch you very soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye. Ship, I think I'm going to need something to draw on.